Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. Today, I want to talk about manifesting a miracle. I want to talk about the power of the mind. I want to talk about being creators of our own reality, about taking wild leaps of faith, about trusting in the universe. I want to talk about society's views on money. I want to talk about the Bible's views on money. And I want to continue the conversation that I had in the last transmission about my controversial decision to live out of my car. So those are the things we're going to talk about today. Very exciting. Just a little FYI, I'm working on upgrading the podcast, leveling it up. I'm going to start shifting away from these Instagram videos and start focusing more on creating video content on my podcast. So I found a new platform that's pretty great that will allow me to, it's essentially Zoom for podcasters. So it's going to allow me to have conversations with other people, which I feel led to do, and I'm pretty excited about actually. So more conversations with other people, so look forward to that, and video podcasts rather than audio only, so a general upgrade. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you're enjoying the content that I'm throwing at you here on Instagram, I'm going to continue it over on the podcast. So follow A Cult of Misfits on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube, etc. I'm in the process of doing that. I'll keep you updated as I roll things out and start doing more videos over there. So look forward to that. I'm excited for that. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about manifesting a miracle, my decision to live out of my car, etc. About 3 years ago, it was during the pandemic, about 4 years ago now actually, I had gotten a divorce. And I had moved into a little apartment and was starting everything fresh and new. It was, discombobulating time. I had really started diving into things of a spiritual nature and just watching a lot of YouTube videos, watching a lot of Instagram, just sort of a sponge, starting fresh, looking for new things. And I started hearing this word manifesting that I'd never heard before. The concept that we can manifest things with the power of our mind, that we can be creators of our own reality, the book, The Secret, the law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, things of this nature, and it really resonated with me. But as with all things in my life, I am somebody who wants to test it out for myself. I don't want to just have somebody tell me that manifesting is a thing. I want to fire it up and see if it actually works. And so I thought, I'm gonna try this whole manifesting thing out, because if anybody can do it, I think it's me. I think I can do this thing. So I was living with my boys, and I didn't have money at the time to get them bicycles. I wanted to get them a couple of bikes. They were around 6 or 7 years old at the time, so I just wanted to get them some small bikes to kind of putz around the neighborhood. I go on a lot of walks, so I wanted to just get them a couple of bikes, but I couldn't afford it. So I thought, you know what? This seems like a good opportunity to try the old manifesting out. So I did all the things. I focused my mind, my heart, my emotions on bikes. Gotta get a bike. And so about a week later, I'm on Facebook, and I see that somebody is offering 2 bicycles for free on Facebook that just happened to be the perfect size for my 2 boys. And lots of people were saying, oh, pick me. I would love those bikes. A lot of people wanted the bikes because, hot items. And I threw my hat into the ring, and I said, hey, I'd love to have those bikes if they're still available. And sure enough, the lady chose me, and I got those bikes for my kids. Exactly the right size. They actually came with 2 helmets that I also couldn't really afford. So the helmets were kind of the cherry on top. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's interesting that I was manifesting 2 bikes of that size, and a week later they happened to appear in my reality. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Let's make note of that and continue forward. So So I did. The apartment that I moved into had a wood-burning fireplace, which I'm a big fan of. And that's sort of the main reason that I chose that apartment, was just for the fireplace. I'm a big fan of it during the fall and the winter seasons, firing that bad boy up. I love the crackle. I even got myself a little hatchet. I felt like a real lumberjack with my little hatchet, chopping shit up. I'm sure that in the apartment complex, my neighbors loved the sound of me chopping wood on my back porch, but that's okay. I love the firewood, but eventually it started becoming unsustainable. Like I said, I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, and I didn't have the money to afford going to the grocery store each week and buying, what turned out to be cords of wood, piled up inside of my apartment every fall and winter. So I thought, like, I don't really have enough money to keep buying wood, so I'm going to manifest it. I was pretty successful with the whole bicycle thing, so let's just see if I can manifest some firewood for myself that can get me through winter. It's not like I'm living in the Alaskan outback and I needed the firewood to survive, but it was just, it made me happy, guys. So I thought, like, I'm going to manifest some firewood. The thing about manifesting, from what they tell me, is not to be too hung up on the hows and the whys, right? Details. Don't worry about how the firewood comes to you. Just believe that it's going to come and let the universe do its thing. So I thought, like, all right. So I started focusing on firewood, focusing every, little molecule in my tiny little brain on firewood. And a couple weeks later, I'm talking to my grandma. She lives on 2 acres of property out surrounded by woods. And she misses me, and she was like, let's, can you come over and let's set up a time to come over and visit. I miss you. And I said, all right, fine. And she goes, oh, by the way, this is kind of out of the blue, but I actually have a bunch of firewood on the property that one of the neighbors chopped up for me. A tree fell down. And if you want, you can fill up your car with as much firewood as you can and take it back to your apartment if you're interested. And I was like, well, interesting that you should mention that, because yes, I would like firewood. I've actually been trying to manifest it for the last several weeks, and it's real interesting that you mentioned that. So I loaded up my car with the firewood, and I was good to go for months. It was sort of like hitting the firewood jackpot. So it was things of this nature that I was playing with, and time after time after time, I was manifesting these things. And it started to get spooky sometimes. Like I would even go on walks, and I would try to manifest something unusual just to see if it worked, right? Like a pink van, right? You don't see those very often. So I thought, like, okay, I'm going to try to manifest a pink van on my walk today. And so I would just go on a random walk, and sure enough, a pink van would drive by out of the blue. So it's just these sorts of things. Or it wasn't always things that were material. I would, there were times where I was lonely and wanted to, just have some social interaction. And so I would say, I'm going to manifest some social interaction. And sure enough, I would get a phone call within 24 hours from somebody who was just saying, like, hey, we're having a barbecue if you want to come over and visit, or, hey, we're going out to dinner if you want to come join us. Just random family members or friends would reach out to me after I was concentrating my mind on social interaction. So time after time after time, I was successfully manifesting these things. Enough so that, for me at least, it couldn't be brushed off as just coincidence, right? Or like, well, I'm a skeptical person by nature. And so at some point, there was enough evidence that there was something to this whole manifesting thing, right? I was consciously thinking of something, and then it would pop into my reality as predicted, as told to me by these people on Instagram and YouTube talking about manifesting. So eventually, after enough of these successful manifestations, I was having a little talk with the universe, with spirit, with God. And Spirit said to me, why don't you try manifesting something bigger, right? Why don't you, the firewood was cool, the bicycle was cool, but why don't you try aiming for something a little bigger? And so I thought about it, and I thought, like, all right, all right, I'm going to manifest a mansion, right? That seems pretty outrageous and big. And a mansion for me at this point, my entire adult life, I had basically lived in a string of small apartments, right? Of varying degrees of shittiness, right? So there's just these small apartments that I lived in. And so for me, a mansion was anything bigger than, like 1,200 square feet. So I thought like, okay, let's do this thing. I'm going to manifest a house for myself. That seems pretty crazy. And based on my previous manifestations, I'm starting to believe that like I can actually do it. So Spirit said, okay, that's cool. Cool. You can definitely manifest a house, but why don't you try for something bigger? Why don't you try to shoot for the fences, and why don't you try to manifest something that most people would think is impossible? Something that would seem miraculous and crazy and blow people's minds. Why don't you go big? And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, okay, the first thing that popped into my head was, well, let's manifest a winning lottery jackpot ticket, right? That seems pretty insane and quote unquote impossible. I'd gotten myself to a point where I don't believe that anything is impossible. I believe that anything in this reality is possible. And so I thought, yeah, all right, let's manifest a winning lottery ticket. Let's do it. And Spirit said, that's fine. That's fine. You can definitely manifest a winning lottery ticket, but let's talk about it a bit. Let's dig a little bit deeper and let's figure out why you want to win a lottery ticket of all things. Let's get to the deeper layers beyond this and see what the reasoning is behind that. So I thought, okay, the universe said, why don't you figure out like, what do you actually want? Why don't you manifest something that you actually want rather than, material goods like a firewood or a mansion or a fancy car or something of that nature? Like, what do you actually truly want? What does your heart want? And so I thought like, okay, that's a good question. Let me dig into that for a bit. And so I actually took several weeks to meditate upon it, to think about it, a lot of long walks, a lot of talks with the universe. And after that time, I concluded that what I was truly looking for, what my heart actually desired, wasn't necessarily the material goods or the money, but what I was truly looking for was what I often talk about, and that's freedom. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted the freedom to do whatever I want whenever I want, essentially. Right? I wanted to travel when I want. I wanted to buy the house that I want. I wanted to buy the car that I want and live the type of life that I want. And the world that we live in, this reality that we found ourselves in, is pretty reliant upon money. And if you didn't watch the last transmission that I did, that last episode where I talked about part of the reasons why I wanted to free myself from these societal obligations to work a 9-to-5 job, to do the daily grind in order to make more money, gotta survive. And what I was looking for was to free myself from that paradigm. And so what I was really looking for was freedom. And I realized that if I were to win the lottery and to manifest a winning lottery ticket, what that would do was going to afford me that freedom that I was looking for, that I would be able to pursue my creative desires without having a gun to my head saying, gotta make money, gotta figure out some way to monetize this, otherwise you're gonna fail, otherwise you're gonna be homeless and in your car. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'm truly wanting. I want to manifest a winning lottery ticket, for that will be the avenue that will allow me to be free. And so the universe said, great, good answer, Matt Owens. Let's talk about it. And so I said, okay, what is this going to entail? What do I got to do? What's the game plan here? And so Spirit said to me, if you want to go down this path, it's going to require that you face your deepest and darkest fears. And I was like, okay, okay, go on. And Spirit said, you're going to face your deepest and darkest fears, and you're going to have to address and resolve your limiting beliefs around money. And I said, okay. And Spirit said, I'm going to lead you down a very specific path if you choose to go down this path. And it's a path that's going to be very scary for you. It's going to be well outside of your comfort zone. It's going to require that you take radical leaps of faith, and that you're going to have to trust that I'm leading you to a place of milk and honey, this place of freedom that you desire. And so in order to manifest these things in your life, it's possible, but you're going to have to follow me and trust that I'm leading you down the right path. And it's going to require you walking through the darkness, walking through the fire. And it's going to require a lot of strength on your part. And I said, okay. And at this point, I had faced a few of my fears, so it wasn't new to me. And so I thought, like, okay, I'm down for that. I had been on the inner journey. I had been facing a lot of my fears, facing a lot of my limiting beliefs. And so I thought, yeah, I'm ready for this. I think I can do this. And so Spirit said, great. If you choose to go down this path, you need to know that you're going to get a lot of pushback from the people in your family. Your loved ones are not going to understand what the hell you're doing. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to judge you. They're going to get mad at you. They're going to tell you that you're on the wrong path. And you need to ignore all of them. And you need to continue to trust me. And to turn down all of that noise and to trust me. Trust that I'm going to lead you and guide you to the right place. Because these people in your family, your loved ones, they've never seen anybody go on this path before. And so it's going to seem foreign to them. I was shown by Spirit that there's two different paths. There's the path that I grew up with, the path that my family is familiar with, the path of the matrix, if you will, the path of the external, right? The muggle path of working a 9-to-5 job, working within that machine, that paradigm that our society and civilization has molded itself on ever since the Industrial Revolution, of grinding 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, working 2 or 3 jobs. Anything is possible as long as you work hard enough on the external, as long as you work enough hours, as long as you make enough money, you can buy that house. And that's path number 1. And Spirit showed me that path number 2, the path that I had never ventured down before, and those in my family and loved ones had never ventured down before, and that was the internal path. That was the path less traveled. That was the path inward, the path of addressing my fears, addressing my mental blocks of fear and anxiety and worry, of staying within my comfort zone, and that I could choose either of these paths and be equally successful. And so I decided to choose the inner path rather than the outer path. The inner path of going within and trusting God. And so Spirit said, okay. If you choose to go down this path, here's what it's going to require. If you want to manifest this freedom, if you want to manifest that winning lottery ticket, if you want to manifest that mansion, it's going to require that you quit your job, which I was okay with because I was not happy at my job. I was just doing deliveries for Amazon at the time, just because I didn't know what else to do. I was sort of in this transitional phase in my life where I had a very successful photography career, doing a lot of food photography, and it was no longer bringing me joy. and it was no longer bringing me happiness. I was no longer fired up about it. I was no longer passionate about it. And so I was sort of at a crossroads in my life, trying to figure out what I want to do next. And so I took a job just delivering Amazon packages out of my car. And so the universe said, if you're ready to do this thing, it's going to require that you quit your job, that you don't renew the lease at the apartment that you're at. This is right in the middle of the pandemic, by the way. So everything was upside down. Everything was very chaotic. Everybody was sort of freaking out, myself included. And so the universe said, don't renew your lease at your apartment. It's going to require that you give away all of your belongings and possessions, all of your furniture, all of your electronics, your TV, all of your plates, your dishes, everything, your clothing, give it all away. And I was like, okay. It was very biblical, right? It felt very much like what Jesus told his followers to do, which was to give everything away and follow me. And so I thought, okay, give away all my belongings, quit my job. Okay, what else? And Spirit said, it's going to require that you become homeless and that you live out of your car. And I went, okay. For how long? And Spirit said, indefinitely. And I went, oh, okay, indefinitely. That's cool. Okay, what else? And Spirit said, and you're going to have to become sober. And I went, okay. At that time, I was drinking a lot of alcohol, smoking a lot of weed. I was real comfortable with that lifestyle. And so I thought, okay, all right, good conversation, Spirit. Good conversation. Good to know. I don't know if I'm ready for this. So I might have bitten off more than I can chew here. This all seems very overwhelming. I don't know if I'm ready for this. So good talk. I need to reevaluate things here. So I sort of panicked because that's not the answer that I was expecting from Spirit. I thought that it would be easier. I'm like, I'm down to face my fears, but like, I don't know, those seem a little too big for me right now. So I had to give it a lot of thought. That started creating a lot of anxiety within me and stress, basically having to give up everything in my entire life, having to sacrifice everything in my entire life, and changing everything that I knew and flipping everything upside down, and I didn't know if I was ready for that. So I got a real big pit in my stomach and had to put a pin in that for a bit. So over the course of the next several weeks and months, as the pandemic dragged on, it was occupying my every thought. Before I went to bed each night, I was thinking about it. Every morning when I woke up, during every single walk that I went on, I was thinking about it and asking myself if I was ready to take the deep dive, if I was ready to step that far outside of my comfort zone, if I was ready to take this calculated leap of faith into the unknown and trust that I would be taken care of. And after several weeks, after several months, I finally came to the decision that yes, I was going to do it, that I was going to take this leap of faith and do everything that Spirit had prescribed for me in order to head down this path. Without sounding too dramatic, it felt like it was part of my destiny, that it was part of my fate to do this. It felt very epic. It felt very hero's journey. It felt very archetypical. I had been diving into a lot of Jung and his thoughts on archetypes, the archetype of the Joker and the Fool and the Jester, and this idea of looking like an idiot to everybody in order to expand and to grow. And so I thought, like, let's do this thing. I was scared out of my mind. I was definitely not very confident about it, but there was something within me that felt compelled to do it. And so I did, not knowing how things were going to play out, not knowing if it was going to work out, just having faith and trust in the process, having faith and trust in the divine to lead me. And so I thought, like, let's do this thing. So I did. I ended up giving away all of my belongings. I ended up giving away everything and putting it into a storage unit. And much to the horror of my family and those that love me and care about me, much to the horror of my ex-wife at the time, I gave away all of my belongings and I became homeless, and I decided to live out of my car. And so that was 3 years ago. And everything that I'd manifested up until that point had just taken a couple of days, a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months at most. And so I didn't realize at the time that I decided to take this wild leap of faith, to step outside my comfort zone. I didn't realize it was going to take 3 years. But here I am, 3 years later, still pushing forward, pushing onward. And I've definitely gotten a lot of pushback from everybody in my family. I've gotten, as predicted, as Spirit told me, there's been a lot of judgment. There's been a lot of people in my family telling me that I'm on the wrong path, that I'm screwing up, that I'm doing it wrong. And I continually check in with Spirit and with God. And I say, where are we at here? Am I on the right path? Am I continuing to do this right? Am I doing all right? And I continue to get a big thumbs up from the big guy upstairs that just keeps saying, push onward, push forward, continue to have faith and trust. And I want to continue to talk about this in future episodes, future transmissions, and give you more details about the specifics. But part of the game plan for all of this has been personal growth, personal expansion of my heart, of my mind, of my soul. That's the deeper meaning behind all of this. But I feel led to do all of this because I feel like at the end of it, I'm meant to tell my story. That I'm meant to show people through my own actions, through my own life over these last few years, what faith and trust in the divine looks like, what stepping outside of my comfort zone looks like, what calculated leaps of faith look like, that I'm meant to write a book about it. I've been taking notes every step of the way of this wild, wild journey that I've been on. And so I feel like I'm meant to talk about it, which is why I'm doing just that, talking about it. And so I'm going to continue to expand upon it and let you know more details about the path that I've been on the last few years. A lot of wild stories, but it's about expansion, and it's about there's just one life here that we're living, and making the most of it, and swinging for the fences, right? My whole life I had been kind of humdrum up until this point. I had sort of been, just doing the 9-to-5 grind and, plodding along, not really doing things that lit my soul on fire, doing things that I feel like I was meant to do, taking the higher path. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what this is about, is swinging for the fences, looking to create a foundation and of stability in my life, this foundation of confidence, of faith and trust. And so I continually asked the universe, like, how long is this going to take? Like, in the first 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, I'm like, where are we at on this? Just completely freaking out. And the universe said, look, I can't tell you how long this journey is going to take, because if I do, you're not going to have faith and trust. It's not going to build that faith and trust muscle if you know exactly how long it's going to take, right? It's about learning to trust. Trust that every step of the way that you're going to be taken care of. And sure enough, every step of the way I've been taken care of. So this has been a pretty wild journey, and I feel very confident that I am doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing, that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be every step of the way. I believe and have faith that this is not going to last forever. I'm continually shown by Spirit, by God, by the universe, that there are seasons for everything. Some seasons seem to last forever to the human, to me, to my mind. But I'm learning to let go of that. I'm learning to let go of expectation, learning to let go of time, learning to let go of the need to know what's around the next corner, and to not be as afraid when I'm in uncharted territory, when I'm in deep, dark water, when I'm in scary places. I've been in so many scary places intentionally over the last several years while living out of my car, that I've grown accustomed to it. Now when the universe throws me a wrench or puts a bump or a hurdle in my path, I don't freak out like I once did. I don't panic like I once did. Now I just drop to my knees and I say, thank you. Thank you for this hurdle in my life. Thank you for this trial and this tribulation, because I know that it's ultimately helping me to expand, helping me to grow stronger, right? All of these things I used to freak out about in my life. And I'm so glad that I've been given this very unique opportunity, homelessness, living out of my car, this unique opportunity to grow. If I compare myself to who I am today versus who I was 3 years ago, and really my entire adulthood, I was a hot mess my whole life. I was always in a state of worry, a state of panic, a state of fear. I had so much stress in my life. And these last few years have really helped me work through all of that, because I put all of my faith and trust in the divine, which I'd never done before. I had grown up Christian, and I had always had a little bit of faith and trust, right? Anytime things got a little bit rocky, I would freak out and pray about it. Like, okay, God, I need your help here. Help me out. SOS, red alert. Help me out. I'm freaking out here. And of course, God would help me out, right? The divine would help me through it. And then I would go back again to just doing things myself. Okay, I got this. I can do this. And then I would freak out and panic again. And so at the beginning of this journey, I asked myself, what would it actually look like to give as much as I could to 100% faith and trust in the divine? What would it look like to actually, metaphorically give Jesus the wheel, rather than trying to have the wheel take over my life? What would it look like to just go with the flow, right? It sounds all hippie and cool, like, hey man, I'm just going to go with the flow and see what happens. But what would it look like if I actually did that? And so that's what this has been about these last few years, is giving it all up, right? Letting go of control in my life. And that's very scary. And so having been practicing that endlessly over the last 3 years, I've gotten real good at just giving up power and control to the divine. Giving up power and control to the universe, to the cosmic river, to let it flow where it flows. And I found that there's a lot less stress in my life when I do such things as that. So I'm no longer worried and stressed out about what's around the corner. I'm no longer worried and stressed out about how long this is going to take, how long until the next chapter in my life comes along, because I know it's going to come along at some point, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be glorious, and it's going to be perfect. I'm trusting in God's timing rather than my own timing. Because if I had trusted in my own timing, if things had gone according to the way that Matt Owens wanted them to go, I never would have had all these opportunities to grow stronger, right? To expand my consciousness, my soul, my heart, and my mind. So ultimately, I'm so thankful for all these trials and tribulations that I've had over the last few years, and all the trials and tribulations that I will have as long as I'm on this planet. So I really started questioning winning the lottery. I really started questioning money and why I wanted to win money. Why is money important to me? I had a lot of fears around money, as I know that most people do, right? I don't know many people that don't have fears around money. Fears of not having enough money, or fear that I'm not going to make enough money, or fear that I'm going to lose my money, or fear that, my money is going to be taken away from me. I had all of those fears, which is what prompted me to always be trying to look for work and grind, and do that job. It's because I got to make enough money. And there's a lot of stress in that for me. And so I had to ask myself, why do I actually want money? Was it money that I want? Is it freedom that I want? In society, we tend to frown upon rich people, right? Upon people that we perceive are making too much money, right? The billionaires, the millionaires, especially people like those televangelists that are on TV preaching that appear to be fake, right? That are swindling their congregation, that are flying around the world in these luxury jets, or that have 82 Rolls Royces or things of this nature. Society tends to frown upon these people and their intentions because of greed, right? The Bible has a lot to say about greed. I recently looked up what the Bible has to say about rich people and about money, and it's not great. It's not great. Jesus doesn't have a lot of good things to say about rich people. And it's primarily not the concept of just being rich. It's what's underlying the attitudes of those that are wealthy, because there's oftentimes human nature, right? There's oftentimes this undercurrent of greed, this undercurrent of, trying to clasp onto your possessions as tightly as possible so that you don't lose them. Sort of a general lack of generosity when it comes to money. People tend to hoard their money. A lot of people in my family, especially on my mom's side, they brag about how cheap they are, right? They're very proud of how cheap they are and how they don't want to spend a lot of money. And there's a lack mentality behind that, from my perspective, of always thinking that you're not going to have enough, right? If you come from a place of prosperity and knowing that you're always going to be taken care of, then you tend to loosen your grip upon your money, knowing that there's always going to be more, that the universe, that the divine is going to always bless you with more. But if you have that lack mentality, then you clasp onto your money as tightly as possible. And so I think that that's what Jesus and those in the Bible that talk about wealth were talking about. There's a story in the Bible about this man that goes up to Jesus, a wealthy man, and he says, hey, what up, Jesus? What can I do to get into heaven, essentially? What can I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, oh, well, it's real simple. What you need to do is sell all of your possessions and give it to the poor, and that will be a good start. And the look on the wealthy man's face dropped. That was not the answer that he was expecting, which made me laugh, because that's the exact same look on my face when the universe told me that I needed to sell all of my possessions. And the wealthy man in the Bible walked away. He wasn't willing to do it. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. It resonated with me. A lot of people aren't willing to give up their possessions. They're not willing to give up their wealth. They're not willing to give up their status. They're not willing to give up those things that they've clung on to, that they think that they've worked so hard for all of their life, that they think is so important in their life. And I'm not pointing the finger outwards. I'm pointing the finger towards myself as well. I had attached myself to these ideas of who I am and what my own personal concepts of what success looked like, financial success and otherwise. And if you give away all of your possessions, if you don't care about money, or if you don't care about financial status or financial success, then you're a loser. You're a failure in many people's eyes. This is the paradigm that I had grown up in, and this is the paradigm that society runs itself by, especially in Western society in America, right? And in the what's the word? In a capitalistic society, if you're not financially successful, then you're not successful. And this is reflected in the ancient times as well, with the guy that didn't want to give away all of his possessions in order to follow Jesus, in order to gain the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And so when the Bible talks about how it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven, that speaks volumes. It speaks to the fact that most people aren't willing to give up their money. Most people aren't willing to intentionally take a leap of faith and become homeless, to live out of their car, and to give away their possessions in order to gain freedom. There's fear around all of it. The underlying current behind all of this is fear. Fear that we're not going to be taken care of. Fear that it's not going to work out. Fear that we're not going to have that money again. The story in the Bible of Job, I'll just briefly fly through it, but God took away everything that Job had, took away his family, took away his great wealth, took away everything that he had. And then eventually, at the end of the story, Job went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and a lot of gnashing of teeth, and a lot of pain and suffering. But eventually, at the end of the story, God gave it all back to him, right? Because he showed great amounts of faith and trust. There's so many examples, not just in the Bible, but across all spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs. There's this idea that if you have faith and trust, that you'll be rewarded for that God rewards faith and trust, that the universe rewards faith and trust, that there's this large component of belief, that if you simply believe that these things are possible, then that's how they become possible. When we're talking about manifesting, a large component of manifesting is belief. If you don't believe that you can be successful, you're not going to be successful. If you don't believe that you can manifest firewood, you're not going to manifest firewood. If you don't believe that it's actually possible to manifest a winning lottery jackpot ticket, it's not going to happen. And so there's something to it. The Bible talks about belief and faith and trust, that if you believe and have faith and trust, then you can move mountains. Literally and figuratively and symbolically. All of the things. I've now come to believe in my own life, because I've seen it in my own life with my own eyes, that anything is possible. That's why I've started down this path, having a confidence that things are going to work out for me, because they've worked out for me literally every single time. So in society, we have this belief. There's this general anger and disdain for the wealthy, for the rich. There's this vast gap in inequality and income and money in this country and the Western world at large between the poor and the wealthy. But there's always been this idea, this concept of eat the rich, right? It's like, boo, down with the rich. And the more I started down this path of manifesting a winning lottery ticket and really looking within and asking myself, why do I want money? What are my intentions? What are my motivations behind that? Is it greed? Is it to wave it in the face of others, right? To show others how much money I have? What are my intentions here? And the more I started thinking about this concept of eat the rich and down with the billionaire class, it really spoke to that it's coming from a place of lack. From those people that are constantly trying to tear down the billionaires, tear down the millionaires and the rich and those that have more than them. It's all a perception, right? It's all in our own minds. But it comes from a place of lack. You don't see other millionaires constantly trying to tear down billionaires, right? It's because if you're coming at things from a place of abundance, you don't feel the need to tear down those that have more than you. Those that have an abundant mindset, right? It's not about how much money is in your bank account. It's not about how many cars you have or how many houses you have. Abundance is a mindset. So if you're coming at things from a place of abundance, if you're coming at things without that lack mentality, if you're constantly telling yourself that you're poor that you don't have enough money, then you tend to perpetuate that. It tends to create and manifest more lack in your life. I've seen that in my own life. That's why I'm talking about it. My whole life I came from a place of lack. Oh, I don't have enough money. I'm constantly trying to scrounge. Rather than looking at all of the things in my life that were super abundant. I wasn't grateful. I wasn't showing gratitude or thankfulness for the things that I did have in my life. I was endlessly focusing on all of the things that I did not have in my life, constantly perpetuating this lack mentality. These people that are constantly saying boo to the rich, eat the rich, oftentimes they have a roof over their head. Oftentimes they have one car, two cars in their life, right? If they compared their own life to people that are living in poverty in various places in the world, right, that are in India or Brazil or Africa or, wherever, people that are living on, 30 cents a day, that don't have money to feed themselves, that don't have food in their bellies today, right? I had to remind myself, there's always somebody that has more than me, and there's always somebody that has less than me, and I just want to be thankful for what I currently have. Am I able to provide food for myself today? Yes, that's a blessing. There are many people in the world that are not able to feed themselves today. There are many people in the world that do not have a roof over their head today. There are many people in the world that do not have an actual pillow to sleep on tonight. There are people that are sleeping on dirt. These last few years, I've become so aware of my own blessings, all of the blessings in my life. I've become so aware of all of the complaining that I did my whole life. My entire adulthood, I complained about everything. And I was really shown that these last few years, when everything was stripped away from me. I don't say that from a place of victimhood either. The victimhood plays a large role in this. I played the victim for many, many years, right? Blaming other people, blaming my boss, blaming my family, blaming society, blaming everybody but myself. And once I started this inward journey, I started realizing that it's all in here. It's all in here, and it's all in my heart. And there's nobody to blame but myself. It's not anybody's fault but my own. And once I started shifting that mentally, the victimhood started falling away. The victimhood within my own head and heart started dissolving. Once I started becoming aware of all of my blessings, right? When I started living out of my car, I started becoming aware of my blessings. How thankful I was that I even had a car that worked. Thankful that I was able to put gas in the tank. Thankful that I had a roof over my head. Granted, it wasn't a mansion, but it was still a roof. And on those days that it rains a lot here in Western Washington, rains a lot, and I was so thankful that I had this little roof over my head. So thankful that I had this little home to live in on 4 wheels that allowed me the opportunity to be protected from the elements. Because it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. I'm so thankful that I have access to clean water. It could be so much worse. I'm so thankful that I have a blanket at night. It could be so much worse. I could be living in the woods right now. It could be so much worse. I've learned to not compare myself to others, those that have more than me, those that have less than me. I just focus on myself. That's what this journey has shown me. And it's such a valuable, valuable gift. Such a valuable gift that the universe has given me. To just focus on my own lane, to just focus on myself. And to focus on all of the great things that I have in my life. Because in manifesting, I've learned that the more that I focus on the good things, the more that the good things come into my life. The more that I focus on the bad things, the more that those bad things can continue to perpetuate in my life. the more that I focus on all of the people and what they've done wrong to me and how they did me wrong and how they did this and that to me, the more of that lives in my heart, the more that expands in my own heart. And it feels gross. When I first started living in my car, I was real angry and upset at all of the people that weren't helping me out. Harumph. I played victimhood to the max. But now looking back, I'm so thankful that because there were so many people that did help me out in my life along this path, along this journey. And rather than focusing on all of the people that didn't help me out, rather than focusing on all of the people that continued to tear me down, focusing on all of the people that continued to berate me and judge me and mock me, I instead focused on all of the people that loved me, focused on all of the people that continued to help me, that loved me unconditionally, because there are so many of those people in my life. And I simply hadn't been focusing on them, right? And as I started to do more of this in my life, the victimhood just started to drop away. The more that I focused on the abundance, the more abundance blossomed in my life. And life is never going to be perfect, right? I'm never going to have all of the things that my heart desires. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. It's a blessing to not just be given everything that I want. And I'm thankful for that. Things are given to me when they're given to me. And I'm thankful for them when they unfold. So this has been a wild, wild ride, and the journey's not over. And I know that the last chapter is in progress. And it's exciting. I used to live in a lot of fear, not knowing what's around the corner, not knowing how things are going to play out. And so I'm going to continue to talk about it. And I'm excited to report to you the day that I win that dang lottery ticket. So I love you, and thank you for those of you that have joined me on this journey and continue to join me. Follow the podcast over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube if you want to hear more. And for now, that's all I got. End transmission.